Well, hello, welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining me. Thank you once again. This is our Blue Star Careers webinar. Our weekly career connection is here to deliver career solutions to all of our Blue Star Career members. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Laura Torres. Once again, thank you very much. Please post it in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from. We'd love to be able to send your shout outs towards the end of our segment. We have some really great career programming discussions to share with you, but we also want to know how this is streaming or reaching you. We are streaming live on various social networks. So again, we'd love to be able to see where you are being touched by all career programming. So drop it in the comments where, please. We'd also would like to know if do you want to start 2025 with more strategic career goals? If yes, what are some of those career goals? Tell us also about that. We want to be able to support you as well and be able to start directing you towards really great career opportunities because we want today to talk about new industries that perhaps are not so familiar to you or maybe are a little bit intimidating. But guess what? We are going to break down the do's and don'ts, but also the enthusiasm and the great opportunities that you need to know in order for you to get into these incredible opportunities. Got it? Perfect. We have great experts like Jenny Anderson Fraser, who represents Generation. Generation is a global nonprofit network that supports people in achieving economic mobility as well as a better life. So today we want to invite you to jumpstart your career by exploring SaaS sales. What is SaaS? Well, I'm glad that you asked because our guest, Jenny, today will share with us all about that. She is an instructor and a subject matter expert in this field. So, without further ado, let's just begin and get started with our conversation. Ready? Remember, drop us in the comments where you're watching. We'd love to be able to kick off with you and share all kinds of great information directly to you. Thank you. Well, hello. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for supporting this webinar. Please drop it in the comments. Tell us where you're watching. We are live streaming in various social networks. I see our LinkedIn is active already, working on. If you are in our Facebook communities, please drop the comments or in our digital community as well. We'd love to be able to share with you. But let's stop the talking and the continuous reminders. Let me just go straight on and welcome our guest. Thank you so much. We're so honored to have you with us today and have carry on this discussion. Jenny, welcome. Thank you so much for supporting us. Would you briefly introduce yourself and share with us your anything about Generation that you feel proud of, but also how did you get there?
Yeah, so thank you so much for everything, for setting this up. Thank you so much to the audience members for your sacrifice and your service. I think that our service members are incredible folks, and I realize that the life of a spouse is not an easy one. My dad was in the Navy, so I saw the challenges within my own family. And I'm just so excited to have this conversation. Like Laura said, my name is Jenny Anderson Fraser, or Jenny AF, as I am often hashtagged in my Slack communities. I am currently working with generation.org. We are doing a SaaS sales development program, and I get the unique and incredible privilege of leading the instruction. And then also advising on our curriculum and our learner recruitment, and then also supporting our business development efforts to be able to secure employer partners. My background is unique and very atypical for tech sales and probably a lot of B2B or corporate sales in general. I do not have a degree. I come from a rural community. I am still in a rural community of less than 10,000 people. I had a decade-long career in retail and side hustles and call centers before coming into tech. And it has been this incredible rocket ship of a career ever since. I started a little under 9 years ago. as an individual contributor for a uniform company, and then pivoted into tech a couple of years later, and have grown from an individual contributor to a VP in under 8 years. So just an incredible career. I find it extraordinarily fulfilling. And prior to Generation, I ran as a passion project a boot camp for sales, helping women who are in or at risk of poverty break into tech in a similar situation and similar program. So I am just happy to have this chat. I want it to be conversational. I didn't want this to feel like a lot of the other webinars where, you get presented and talked at. So I'm really wanting to know from y'all, like maybe we talk about sales, the background, maybe untangling some of the myths with it. And then we can talk maybe through some of the programming and the opportunity at Generation, if that's cool.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we'll be monitoring the comments as well. But we do want to put you on the spot, Jenny. So you shared really great experience trajectory to multiple degrees. And then, of course, those life-changing moments and experiences that led you to SaaS sales role. So can you share with us a little bit more, like, why did you pick this industry? What led for you to just build that enthusiasm and said, this is really cool. I want to do this for longer and longer than my normal career would have taken me.
Yeah. I love this question because what I have learned over the last few years is that a lot of the people who go through programs like this have a background that is far more similar to mine than what my own background is similar to many of my peers in the industry. I'm so thankful to say that that's changing. But I'll give you a bit of context in that. If you see me on LinkedIn, like, it is loud and proud in my headline, I'm a proud Appalachian, and I have gone from homelessness to 6 figures. I am not ashamed to say that. I'm so proud of it. And it is largely thanks to a professional sales career, and more specifically in a B2B sales, in a B2B and tech sales career. So my path was a bit different. So 15 years ago, I was literally homeless and living in a motel. The motel was $135 a week. So you can imagine what kind of place it looked like and what kind of housing situation it was. And have been clawing my way toward prosperity ever since. I'm so thankful to say that we have it now, but it was a long journey. For most of those years, it was in poverty wage retail jobs, right? Working minimum wage or close to it, at times working commission only. And, like a consumer sales environment, tanning salons, call centers. I sold vacuums over the phone outbound. Like, it was just like a cobbled together mess of a job history. And in retail sales, I shined. I did really, really well. I became manager really quickly. I developed awesome teams. I had top stores and still made poverty wages. And after I had my second son, I got really upset by that, and figured, like, I got to do something different, giving up my nights and weekends for, a job that still keeps me on food stamps is not acceptable. And honestly, I got lucky. One of my customers was hiring for a role. She'd just been promoted, and I reached out to her and I was like, hey, this company is hiring. I think you work there, if I remember correctly. Can you tell me a little bit about it? And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm the hiring manager. I think that you'd be perfect. Like, so please. Like 2 weeks later, I had a job. And all of that, like, ambition and determination and drive and focus on process and developing others, and really just serving others, because that's what sales is, as it's at its core, is serving your clients. Is like, it was like a light switch went on for me. And like, I was just able to turn all of that, like, good experience and like inner engine into something that actually materialized into financial wins. I started in March in Cookeville, Tennessee, which is where I'm from. And by that October, I was getting moved across the country to Boise, Idaho, to take over the bottom ranked location in the whole company. And within 9 months, we turned it around to the top location in the region, the top 10% in the company. And I made like $80,000 that year, which like was crazy to me. Like, I never knew anyone could make that much money. Like, I never knew anyone who did. That felt like such a myth. And then the next year, whenever I was at the top of my game and I was beating all of my peers, and then I heard what they were getting paid in bigger markets, I got real angry because it was more, even though I was outperforming them. And at that point, I was in B2B sales, and I saw other people who were leaving and going other places, and they were either going into medical sales or tech sales. Medical sales likes the degree, tech sales doesn't really care so much about it. And so tech sales it was. I started with ADP. A year later, one of my customers poached me to lead their sales team. And it was a startup. I got a director level role and full ownership over what we did and the process and the sales playbook and the training. And then I got a bit antsy. I wanted to do more. And at that time, I had a bit of a social network built up. I had started posting a lot on LinkedIn and involving myself in some of the sales communities that are out there. And through my network, I was able to get an interview with a unicorn. If you're unfamiliar, that means a company that's valued over $1 billion, but has not yet gone public. That is like every seller's dream, is to get in one of those companies, because it usually means pretty big payouts. For me, it didn't necessarily mean a big payout, but it did mean really incredible leaders who just poured themselves into me. And more importantly, it also gave me an ability to volunteer within my company in employee resource groups. And so I got involved with like the veterans group and the women's group and the Black in tech group and the Hispanics in tech group, and started standing up our DEI programs. Then IBM poached me to lead their talent development for their technical sales force. I spent a year at that role and really missed sales leadership, and then went to a nonprofit leading sales, which seems crazy. Sales in a nonprofit, yes, it exists. At a nonprofit that was focused on advancing women in technology. And then earlier this year, I was impacted by a really crummy market, and it's not great for nonprofits either. And got to, for the first time in my life, I was unemployed, not worried about it. Because I was able to build this kind of security and stability for myself. And then now I get to do what I love. Like I said, alongside those jobs, I started out this passion project. I did that for 4 years. And so now I get to combine all of that experience and all of that passion into a really incredible program, which is being able to help people who probably wouldn't have gotten a chance transition into tech with a bit of training and a bit of social capital.
As you're describing your experience and then your multiple pathways, the different, you got to travel to Ohio, you got to go back, and you got to leave, and then now lead this other group, and then all these multiple opportunities that you got exposed because of, basically because of this industry. I'm going, wow, what an incredible career you decided to really take on and own. It's very inspiring, all the great opportunities that you exposed yourself to, but also you took chances. You took chances to really explore it and go further. And I'm so right on you. I think many of us were just so excited when you get hit with that $60,000, $70,000 more beyond the regular minimum wage, and you get so excited about opportunities that are beyond what your normal expectations or your family life. I'm glad that you were able to make great career out of this. Now, in my experience, though, JD, some members, or sometimes we come across individuals from just life experiences that, they just have a little hesitation about experience, about either learning or knowing too much tech, or just the sales environment in general. How would you describe your affinity or your enthusiasm to break it into the sales field, and then just build really good muscle and be comfortable about it and continue to really advance further to make really good money?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is like maybe just unpacking sales a bit, because for a lot of folks, it's a dirty word, right? For me, it never well, I don't want to say it never has been, because it certainly was much earlier in my career. I got a job at a flooring store during the, hodgepodge of my career before. And I was just supposed to be an administrative assistant. And then my boss, the owner, just kept tossing me more stuff. And I got to a trade show, and I came home and I told my mom, gosh, if I could just talk to people and learn about what they like, and again, flooring store here. If I could just talk to people and learn about their house and their family and their living areas and how they live in those rooms, and then just make the recommendation to them for what to buy, like that's what kind of job I want. And she said, Jenny, I think that like that's sales. I was like, no, it's not. That's not sales. Because my experience with sales was like the insurance guy coming and sitting in my mom's kitchen and sitting in silence for 60 minutes until she signed to get him the heck out of our house, right? My experience with sales was going to buy my first car and being harassed and hounded and talked down to on the parking lot, right? My experience with sales was the Mary Kay woman who came to my house and then just pressured my mom into buying products that she died with still in her makeup bag. So like you have to understand a bit that like how we engage with sales as a consumer is very different than how we engage with sales in a business to business situation. And more importantly, I actually think that like how we should be engaging with sales should mirror what we do in business to business. And what I mean by that is in sales, I actually like, I don't just like pick up a phone and start calling people and then like, hey, if I can help you out, you're willing to have a conversation, right? Or like opening up the trench coat. That's not at all what this is. What I do and what we do in SaaS and in B2B sales is we actually figure out who is our ideal client. What does that person look like? What problems do they have that I can solve? Where do they spend their time? How do they feel about the problems? How do they feel about their role? And then we use all of that information and then we look at like the company even and are like, what kind of companies do we want to sell to? Who inside of those companies, what problems does my software solve? What companies care about solving that problem? Why is it even a problem to begin with? And who the heck in that business cares about solving that problem? And then once I've identified that through being really, really curious and honestly just like intensely nosy, is I like put together what I think is the right messaging. And so then I write to that person with the right message at the right time, hopefully, because I've done my research, and ideally to the right person. And then we have a conversation. And that conversation usually isn't me pitching them until I've earned the right to do that. It's me figuring out, hey, when I talk to other people in your situation, they're experiencing this and they're handicapped by this thing. And I'm just wondering how that's playing out in your business. Does that sound familiar to you? And if I've done my research right, it probably is really familiar to them. And if I've done my research right, it's not just familiar to them, it is their lived experience. And now I get to ask the question around how bad is that problem? And identify the urgency with solving that problem. And then I get to earn the right to pitch a possible solution. But only then are we actually entering into a discussion around them actually purchasing. Because what we have to do then is engage all of the other people in their business that care about solving that problem. And also figuring out like, okay, well, who cares about what, and who are the detractors, and who are the promoters, and who are the people who are going to like champion me and help me through this deal, and navigating those conversations based on your knowledge and understanding and based on your relationship and the trust that you build with that customer. And the entry level roles into this aren't even as complicated as that, because the entry level role is you just literally figuring out who has a problem, who cares about, like, why is it a problem, and who cares about solving it? And then you go and do the outreach. And what I think is really interesting to me is like sales is a life skill, right? If you've ever negotiated a bedtime with your child, you have negotiated similarly to sales, right? If you have ever had a friend who was dating a really terrible person and you had to like guide them to realize what an awful garbage human that they were dating, and then help them like lead them to that decision and make it their own, that is sales, y'all. Like if you've had a teenager who you had to convince to like I don't know, clean their room, or why curfews are important, or why they can't be on their screens for 24 hours a day. Y'all, that's a life skill. That's sales, right? It's not
Absolutely.
just telling somebody what to do, it's helping guide someone with their own decision and you helping support that decision-making process.
Absolutely. I so agree with you tremendously. I think, especially, well, within our community, obviously, environment, military, spouse community, we're all very well in negotiating. Maybe we don't like to give ourselves that credit, but we are so well in negotiating because you have to pick up and leave. You have to do these. You have to do all these new projects, new things. And so I think sometimes we don't recognize those hidden skills quite often because we don't think of them as sales or negotiating, but those are really life experiences, life-changing moments that can definitely create and give you a path towards a really great programming and career opportunities like this ones. Now, Jenny, I want you to focus a little more and talk to us about generation.
Yeah.
What does generation does, and how can our members really leverage and provide good engagement for these opportunities where they are located?
Yeah. So I'll give a bit of background on generation. And I, well, first of all, is like boot camps and sales boot camps, especially, are like a dime a dozen. And I don't say that to like scare anyone off or to diminish what we do. It's actually to explain to you why what we do is so different and important and valuable. So over the last, say, 5 to 10 years, there was a talent shortage in tech sales. There were not enough people to fill the roles that we had. Obviously, the market has shifted a bit, and that's a bit different. And so a lot of these boot camps, what they were doing before is they were telling people, hey, they would just start up, and it was some founder, and like I'm guilty of this, y'all. I was the same way. You're like, I've built training, I've developed training, I've built sales teams, I can create great sellers, I'm going to create a boot camp. Now, what most of these folks did is they actually built boot camps and they went out and got funding for them. And then they were beholden to funders, and they had to like generate a lot of revenue because you needed to be in business and you had to sustain that business. And the way that they did that is they would charge learners. And they would do so in kind of weird ways. Sometimes it was an income share agreement where it's like, hey, if you get placed, then we'll take part of your income for a certain period of time. If you're somebody who's low income, like I was, like, that's not an option. I'm not trying to give you my money. Like, come on, right? Especially in a sales job, because you get so much on the job training. Some of the other programs were really focused on like new college grads, and new college grads, y'all, 2 years ago, 5, 10 years, they weren't having too hard of a job getting into tech. Now, what happened over the last couple of years, though, is that a lot of those places, their business model wasn't sustainable because that they weren't able to consistently place people in roles, or their training wasn't that great, or because the market shifted. Generation's a bit different in that we actually provide training for free. And rather than just sending you to an online portal where you have to like lead yourself through that learning and then maybe get a few tests, we actually do full-time training. And we do that for a little over 2 months going into the next cohort. And so it's full-time training, and we don't just teach you the sales part of it, which we do, and give you all of the foundations and training that you need to be successful, as we also are going to like give you practice in that. And then also talk about some of those like soft skills and behavioral skills, but also the employability piece of it around how do you navigate and actually get a job in this market. And then we pair you with not just your instructor, which is me, and an assistant instructor, but also a mentor who is there to help like keep you all on the right track, right? And help just kind of like bolster your confidence and give you some good coaching and advice and guidance as you're navigating this. And then we also have an employability coach whose job is specifically around making you job ready, right? And helping you navigate the interview process and the job search process. So we actually get you to placement. And then we also have employer partners who have agreed to interview and hire our learners. So it is like a full program where we give you full support. And that support doesn't just end whenever you graduate. We actually continue that support from employability for the following at least 6 months. And then we track you and your development and how you are progressing in this for like 2 to 5 years. Because what we focus on at Generation is breadth depth and durability. So it's not just your ability to get a job, but your ability to get a job and what you trained for, how good at that job you are, and how long you stay in that job. And employers really like that because our learners, on average, have longer tenure. They also have a higher performance and outperform their peers, and also higher promotability. So like whenever you look at all of that from an employer standpoint, they're actually like they're benefiting from this program too, because of what we're doing is handling some of that vetting and that job preparedness and getting someone ready for the role. And we've done this for a decade globally. So it's not just some like fly by night program that just pops up and then you never hear anything about them again. Like we've been doing this for 10 years. We actually spun out of McKinsey. And Mona, who's our CEO, is just so passionate about economic mobility that she's been beating this drum and talking about workforce development and job training for economic mobility for a big chunk of her career, certainly the last 10 years. And so we actually take that really, really seriously, that you're not just getting a job, but that you're getting not even just a living wage job, but a thriving wage job, and can do that without having to spend a ton of money to like upskill yourself.
I love it. I think this is so fantastic because you are creating that really good portability piece of just not, like you said, not just a job. It is a future career path that you are there to support 2 years, 3 years, when our maturity or different career needs perhaps might have changed. Then, it's great to have this network to be part of it. I love it that you said, I've done it. My or assistant instructor is part of it. So you've been there, you've done that. You have, you know, lived this type of training and all this great community along the way. So this is fantastic to be able to do this for opportunities. And so I do have a question here. Gwendolyn is asking, interested, but wants to know more if this is only available for military spouses. So Gwendolyn, you are a military spouse. Once a spouse, always a spouse. Okay, let me just first say that. But yes, it's available for others as well. And I'll let you, Jenny, answer that as well.
Yeah, so our programs globally are targeted on demographics and regions with I think the hardest time of advancing their socioeconomic status. We go through really robust research to figure out exactly what those areas are in the United States. Right now, we're focused on rural areas. Really specifically in Appalachia, that's where a lot of our students are coming from, but we've also expanded that to be any community or any location where there are less than 50,000 people living. Because that, as I'm sure everyone on this call is aware, rural places, like you got a blue collar job or you got a service job, and that is it. And those wages are usually pretty stinky. And if you were, I don't know how many men and women I have on this call, but at least for me, my lived experience, whenever I tried to go get a high wage manufacturing job was, have you tried the tanning salon down the road? Have you thought about going into serving? And I'm like, yeah, of course I've thought about it, but I want to make a bit more than $7 an hour. Right. So like we recognize that in rural communities, access to high wage, thriving wage jobs is really limited. And so really that's what we're focusing on outside of just military spouses as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for responding to that. So yes, anyone who you think will benefit, even your young adults, our kiddos, our military kiddos, sometimes they are the perfect candidate for a program such as this one, because they're also developing, they're growing into a great career path. But what a great opportunity sometimes if they're not necessarily candidates or they don't want to do the whole long-term career or educational, program. I know I have one, no university, and he's like, I don't want to do that whole route, Mom. It's too long. I have another one that said, absolutely, I want to do my entire education, master's, PhD, and everything else. So it's for anyone who's interested in learning, growing, but most importantly, identifying a great career path. And so I'm going to share with you how you can find out more about that. Obviously, it's right here in the comments. I shared the links, but I'm also going to share my so that you know where to find it in the neighborhood. And then I'm going to share directly Generations website where you will go and find it. So when you are in our neighborhood community, if you get to our Blue Star Careers group, You find under the events, and that's where we have all the different programming that you can add your name to it. So for instance, this one is just for generation. If you add your name to it, we'll ensure that you get the links, you get the updates, and then you get the follow-up where you need to go. So that's our commitment. That's my commitment right there. I want to ensure that you make it where you need to go so that you can sign up, but most importantly, have direct questions. If you don't want to bug Jenny or you don't want to flood her LinkedIn connection, that's fine. Then you can send it over to us. Now, another way that you can do, of course, is we dropped that already in the comments, is go straight to their website. It's right here. You'll get to read more about their program, what the SaaS sales development representative is all about, the training, and then just in general, read more about what you will expect, what you'll gain, all of that stuff. Be informed. Don't just sign your name to it, but be informed. But if you are considering, one of the best things that I always like to tell people is just put your name on the basket anyways. And then if this is not the perfect timing for the next cohort, guess what? You'll be on the list. You'll be notified for the next cohort or the next time when something comes through. Then you already are ahead of the game, knowing about incredible opportunities like this one. Okay, Jenny, anything, we're getting ready to wrap up on our time. I want to be mindful of your time and be able to go out and pick up on your teaching, on leading classrooms and cohorts. But I do want to ask you a couple of last questions.
Yeah.
You know, if anyone out there is hesitating, or from your particular communities that you've seen graduates, are there any potential challenges that you think maybe some members sort of face when they're transitioning into a SaaS career that maybe we can address them now, so if we can just like prepare better when we engage in something like this?
Gosh, this is a tough question to ask, because I think that the challenges are going to vary by person, and probably also there are going to be some challenges that like intersectional differences are probably going to bring to folks. So I'm going to try to paint with a broad brush here. I think overwhelmingly the biggest challenge that some folks have is probably just silencing your inner imposter. And I'll say that, like, for me specifically, in my own experience, I was not even fully out of training for my first sales job whenever I was like, maybe I should go back to retail. Because it just felt so different to me. It felt very uncomfortable because it was different. The things that I was learning to do, because remember, I'm not selling to consumers anymore. I have to sell to executives and business leaders who make more money than me and are better educated than me and certainly drive much nicer cars than I did in my old beater that I pulled up in, right? Like to like recognize that you have value and that you bring value to those conversations is, I think, one of those big challenges initially. The way that I overcame that is I just prepped my butt off for all of my conversations. I would just learn a ton. And so I want to like maybe switch gears and say, like, the flip side of that is, in sales, regardless of what experience you come with, there are some things that sales leaders and hiring managers are going to be looking for. Grit. So whatever story of overcoming something tough, of having a chip on your shoulder and something to prove, like that grit and resilience are going to be so, so key. The other piece is going to be emotional intelligence. Like, can you communicate with people? Can you build a relationship? Can you quickly build rapport? And as someone who is very socially awkward outside of a professional sales environment, it is less intimidating than that sounds. Let's see here. The other thing is, like learning and coachability. And I think that's probably the steepest learning curve whenever you come to tech. I am not a techie person. I will be the first to say that if my computer is on the fritz, I'm handing it to my husband, because goodness knows, do not count on me to do it. And y'all, I sold artificial intelligence software. Like, I am the least techie person. I don't want to say that I know, because I know plenty more or less techie than me, but like, it was a tagline that I used, like, land a tech job without being techie. You don't have to be technical to be good in this world. What you have to be good at is being curious. Like, knowing enough about your customer, their problems, their business, to be able to connect the dots to a solution and be able to, if you smell smoke, go find fire. And honestly, y'all, that's just questions, right? Whenever you're having a hard conversation with a friend, or a foe even, and you're helping to understand them, their challenges and their point of view a bit differently. Like that's the same thing as a sales skill. And so being really curious and being intensely coachable and ready to take feedback and immediately apply it is going to be a really critical piece of sales. And then I think there are going to be challenges anytime that you're in remote work, and specifically in sales and trying to compete against a lot of other folks. Everyone wants a remote job. I don't say everyone. A lot of folks want a remote job. If you are in a rural area, or if you are someone who is a military spouse and is not always going to be in the same city all the time. I actually traveled full time. I live in an RV for a few years. Like remote work is your only option, right? And so you have to be hyper competitive. And what I love about sales is that you have to do the job to get the job. And I can tell you that as a sales leader, very, very few people have. So if there's any challenge that you have, like if you've got the grit, the tenacity, the curiosity, and the emotional intelligence to have a conversation with somebody and connect the dots and find common ground, you can probably be okay at sales. In order for you to be really, really great at sales, do the job to get the job. And like obviously like you can programs like Generation are fantastic for being able to get you the training and the social capital, so you've got some receipts and experience that are going to help make you more competitive, but like also just building social capital. So I realize that's like a really long robust answer for that, but I hope that it sits well with someone. Again, sales is an incredible opportunity. I mean, there are so many places you can go with it. You can start, like most people start as SDRs, which is a sales development rep. That's what we teach you and train you for at Generation. But from there, like an entry level role that averages like 70K a year is bonkers, right? That's changing a bit in this market, but like it's still really, really good money. But like what's really incredible is where you can go from that. You can go into customer success, where you are focused more on the relationship and keeping your customers. You can go into account and to be an account executive, where you get to own the full cycle of the sale from the moment that you get that meeting all the way to the time that you are closing that deal. And you get to have really cool conversations with people that you probably wouldn't have otherwise. You can go into leadership, right? Maybe you find that you're really great at this and you have a knack for simplifying concepts and a love of people and developing others, and you decide that you want to be a SDR manager or an AE manager. Or maybe you're like, heck, I really love training and I don't love selling, but I can train people to sell. And you decide to go into enablement and like train future sellers. Like there's so many endless opportunities. I know people who have gone and pivoted into like content creation and social media management and coaching. I mean, it's just like sales is a life skill. It is a skill in every job that you're going to have. I will die on that hill. And so for me, like, I think that like, if you're up for a challenge, just like forget that the challenge even exists. Just do it. Be bold, be fearless, go for it.
Excellent. I love it. I love that you continue to remind us the sales is a life skill, and we really just have to grab it, love it, and carry on. I want to take this moment to say, before we wrap up in a couple of minutes, to send some shout outs to Barbara, to Brian, Wendeline. Thank you so much for watching and supporting, as well as out here. Would like to be able to send shout outs to Brianna. Thank you so much, Brianna, to Stream Solutions. George, thank you so much, George, for supporting as well. And then, of course, in our digital community, Casey and Grace, as well as Sierra, thank you so much for supporting. And then we have all these other groups or pages out there, but I cannot reach to all of them at the same time. But if you have questions, comments, just remember, use that chat, post it in there. We'll ensure that we go through all of the different social networks that where this might be streaming, that we are going to go take care of it. But if anything, in doubt, just go to the Blue Star Careers neighborhood, where this webinar is also posted in there. just share a comment. We'll take care of you within right almost on the spot and send you where you need to go. We'll make sure that you reach Jenny and find her on LinkedIn and start asking questions. But most importantly, start creating your career opportunity and your stability and the mobility that you need with towards more sustainable opportunities, which that's what generation is really trying to do. It is not trying, is doing, is leading by example. So thank you very much, all of you who are supporting Jenny. One of the things that we have here before we leave is, just to put you on the spot again and put, what is your call to action? What would you like us to do? But also, if there's something that you personally are working on, how can we support you as a community?
Ooh, okay, so I'm going to answer the first one, call to action. If this sounds interesting to you, go apply. Like, don't even think about it for a second longer. Go to the website and go apply, right? At least have a conversation. Take a bet on yourself. Get comfortable being uncomfortable as you're navigating your career, but especially if you were considering sales, like whatever doubt, whatever concerns, just go apply, right? What's the worst that could happen? The piece around call to action around me and what I'm working on, I have a personal mantra. It's do the most good, make the most impact. Everything that I do is rooted in that decision. I'm going to get a little teary-eyed. So if maybe sales isn't for you, that's fine. It's not for everyone. I would, again, remind you, sales is a life skill. It is for everyone. But like maybe a career in sales isn't for you, right? But if you know someone who likes learning, who's a nosy person, who like could sell ice to an Eskimo, right? Like all of the, if you know somebody who is great at relationship building, who is curious, who has emotional intelligence, and who is looking for a career opportunity somewhere that they can like build something for themselves, send them to sales, send them to me, send them to Generation. The opportunities here are far too incredible for us to gatekeep them from people who could do the job well. So if you think you know somebody who could, or if you think that person's you, like do not hesitate a moment longer.
Wonderful. Go apply. That is fantastic. That's a great way to wrap this up. Yes, again, we're all scrolling down through social networks and you find someone out there posting saying, I need a job. I'm looking at career pivot. What can I do? Lead them to this opportunity. Post it, share it, pay it forward. That's how we say it in our military spouse community. Pay it forward. And Jenny just described all the great qualifications that all of you military spouses and service members and military kids, dependents, really would fit great for opportunities like this one. So with that being said, thank you so much for your opportunity. Thank you for watching. We love to stay connected. Please meet us in the neighborhood. That's where you'll find all the one-stop shop resources so that you can find Jenny, Generation, and all the other great opportunities that we bring to you for our Blue Star Career members. So thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you all so much.